the NFC North, going through what y'all need to know to make some money on his bitch. So I'm going to go through this pretty quick here. Just a reminder with these videos, I think drafting for need overall is really just a stupid thing to do in almost every scenario. It's always better to take a better player in any position than a bad player, because taking a bad player just because you need him at that position, it don't fix the issue, right? It just creates more problems. So, you see the draft picks on screen for each of the teams here, and let's get into it here. Chicago Bears. This team, it's a team that's been relying on their defense, kind of bailing them out in a lot of ways in the last couple of years, and that's going to get a lot tougher with the way that they've played the last couple of years with the roster moves. You see at the top here, quarterback. Now, I will say with this one that of all the teams that have quarterback at one, as opposed to teams like the Saints or the Panthers or something like that, Andy Dalton, I at least think this specific year coming up could provide a level play you need to win if they had a better team around him. Now, that's not the case, but I just want to mention that here. But as soon as, I'm justifying the quarterback position like that, it's a really big need, and they definitely don't have anyone on the roster who's going to be a positive starter going forward. So that's the first thing. Next, offensive line, really, but specifically right tackle in the interior. So the Bears, they have some name recognition there, and I think some people think these players are better than they are, but they definitely need help here. I mean, Charles Leno, the best of them, he's fine at left tackle. Not elite at all, but you're definitely fine there. But the other spots, I mean, Cody Whitehair's the best of the rest. He, like I said, he has some name recognition to him, and actually as a guard, I think he's fine, but he's not good, really. He doesn't necessarily provide a ton for you, and he still has issues himself. And then you have James Daniels, disappointment of a pick. Again, some people think he's okay. He's really not. He's not the worst guard in the league, but you can upgrade on him very comfortably. And past those two, then you're getting into Alex Bars, Jermaine Ifedi, Sam Mustapha is the other three, however they plug them in. And if you're starting any of them for a long period of time, you're not in a good spot. Now, you got to remember with these needs, right? It's not about if you can survive there necessarily. It's about if you can be good with whatever that is. And those guys, if you're their long-term starting linemen, really provide a barrier to being any level of good. And that's the issue, especially at right tackle. That's why it's up here. Right now it's slotted to be Jermaine Ifedi, who, while he did play at a mediocre level at guard last year, you need to get better there if you want to be a real team. So that's at the top, as well as, like I said, the interior. No matter how they organize this and who ends up playing, you just need better players there. The next one, big deal too. They need a slot corner. So they do sign Desmond Trufant in the offseason, and they have Jalen Johnson. I do think those guys are going to be pretty good on the outside. Good, maybe a little strong. I like Jalen Johnson. Desmond Trufant is fine. If those guys stay healthy, that's not going to be the reason your defense sucks. But their slot corner might be. Duke Shelley was horrible last year, ended up getting benched. They also have Kendall Vildor, who came in for him, who was better, but isn't anyone I care about as a positive contributor on defense either. So that's a spot that could kill them, that they really need to get better at. And even the outside corner, being past those two I mentioned, Trufant, Johnson, no depth there at all. Nobody outside. I mean, the only one on this roster is Artie Burns, who I'm pretty much over as being a positive player at this point. So that's a big one. Next, outside receiver. So the Bears, right, they have Allen Robinson, top 10 guy, no question, really, really good. Past him, they actually still have, and that's why this need is so low here comparatively. They have Darnell Mooney and Anthony Miller. Darnell Mooney, home run pick, really good player, going to be consistently useful his whole career. Very positive about that, really good. Anthony Miller, too. Now, his highlights look horrible, and that's because he has really bad and untimely drops, and that's probably going to continue to be an issue. And I don't want to gloss over that, but he does still do a lot of things if you watch him play the whole game that are really positive. He gets open a whole lot and really pretty easily. He's a really good player in a lot of respects, but I can see why most people who are only have paying attention or watch highlights or whatever would think he's worse than he is. But regardless, you can get better at that spot, especially on the outside opposite Allen Robinson. And those guys, for as much as I like them, do have their issues. So definitely a spot in need, especially going forward. D line depth. Now, this one, and really all the last three here, are about the talent drain that's happened to the Bears defense over the last couple of years. You go from this team, like I said, kind of relying on them being good to them still relying on them being good, but with half the talent that they used to have. You lose Roy Robertson-Harris, Brent Urban in the offseason, both really good defensive tackles. You bring in Angelo Blackson, who I happen to like. I think he's relatively in the same ballpark, especially as Urban there, but you're still missing guys. Maybe you have Akeem Hicks, and he's still above average and everything, but it's kind of just him, Blackson, Bilal Nichols as guys that I can expect contributions from. Eddie Goldman, sat out last year. We'll see if he comes back and is good. I wasn't crazy about him beforehand. Maybe he'll be okay, but it's just him and Mario Edwards. They re-signed Mario Edwards, but Mario Edwards just doesn't do enough for me to necessarily care about. He's not awful, but I don't care about him as a contributor on defense. So you need depth there if you're going to be relying on this defense to be really good. Strong safety, Sean Gibson, you probably find as a starter this last year, but you need help there. He's not going to be around very much longer at his age. And the other guys on the roster, DeAndre Houston-Carson, Deion Bush, I'm not a fan of. I don't think either of them can really you want as meaningful defensive players. So those spots there, and kind of same story with inside linebacker. Danny Trevathan just up there in age, and behind him, you have nothing. So a lot of talent drain on this defense, and really, if they want to be leaning on them the way they're going to have to be if they expect to be a good team, which they won't this upcoming year, they just need to get a lot better in those spots and hit on a lot of trap picks. So then for the Packers, and frankly, this roster is in a really similar situation to the Bears. The difference being, though, where the Bears are relying on a depleted defense to keep them relevant, the Packers get to rely on Aaron Rodgers. And that difference kind of tells you what you need to know about the difference of these two teams. This one, even if they add nothing, is still going to be really good going into next year. But they do have needs, and that's what we're here to talk about. So the first one, wide receiver. So I know a lot of Packers fans or people in general are saying, well, wide receiver is not as much as a need as you think, because look what they did last year without it. And that's true. Like I said, they're going to be, if they don't add nobody, they're still going to be good. The thing with needs, though, right, is what can you add that's going to make you as much better as you can with draft picks. And the number one thing is if they just add a better receiver. They would get so much better so quickly if they were just add a competent receiver outside of Devontae Adams. And that's pretty much what there is to it. They had Devontae Adams, best receiver in the game, pretty clearly, outside of maybe Stephon Diggs, Julio Jones. And Allen Lazard, you're fine with him on the field too. But after that, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, worst starting receiver in the NFL, pretty comfortably that I can think of, at least. That's not just penciled in as a starter right now because the draft hasn't happened yet. And Equanimeous St. Brown, not been impressed when he's been on the field. You could do better than him too. So that's definitely a big spot. If they want to get better, that's the quickest way. Next one, offensive line, specifically right tackle and center. So you have Bakhtiari, Lucas Patrick, Elton Jenkins, right? You're good there. Billy Turner, not quite the disaster I expected him to be once he moved out to tackle last year, but you can still definitely do better there. And between that and center, right, those are two spots where you can get away with what's there, as all of these spots are with the Packers, but you can get a lot better too. And center, they have Ben Braden, who stepped in for a couple of games last year. I wasn't super impressed, especially given the lack of competition they were playing at that point. But, whether they move Elton Jenkins to center or to tackle like they started the year last year, however they move things around, they're two of the five spots that they need a little bit of help at. Defensive tackle, kind of same thing. You have Kenny Clark, who's a pretty much elite player, but outside of him, you're just bad. Dean Lowry, Tyler Lancaster, not guys you want to – maybe you can get away with Dean Lowry in your rotation, but you don't want them seeing significant defensive snaps. Outside of that, I do kind of like Kingsley Keke as a rotational, penetrator edge rusher, pass rusher, but not someone you want to depend on. So definitely a spot there too that you need help if you want to be better. And really, it's kind of the situation with all the rest of these. Inside linebacker, maybe a little bit more. You could argue that could be higher too. It's just a less important position, especially in their defense. But you have Kamal Martin, rookie from Minnesota last year, who did play okay, and I'm comfortable with him as a starter going next year, at least seeing what he can do. He got me a little bit excited, but other than that, you're just bad. Chris Barnes really, really lacks pass coverage ability and athleticism. And while I know Packers fans kind of liked him because he's one of those, try hard-nosed linebackers, he's just not very good. You can do a lot better than him. And please don't put Ty Summers on the football field. Packers defense, Jesus Christ. Definitely a spot you can get better at there. Slot corner, I happen to like Shane Sullivan. I think he actually is not – he doesn't get enough credit for being okay. Now, I don't think he's good, don't get me wrong, but he's fine. Now, I don't know that they've actually officially brought him back yet at this point, so – that is a hole in the roster, a place you could do better, but I don't think it's a crazy, crazy need. And that's kind of the same thing at corner. I know Packers fans, especially at this point, are desperate to get rid of Kevin King, but Kevin King's not that bad. He's really not. Now, obviously, there's the notorious end of the first half against the Buccaneers that you can point to, but And yeah, that was horrible. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, listen, it's unlikely you're going to draft a good rookie corner at all. And especially one who's going to be on the level or better than Kevin King is, you're just asking for trouble. At that point, you really are. So while they do need depth and going forward, yeah, you can do better and everything. Just be careful what you wish for there, Badgers fans. But yeah, overall, again, roster with some holes, but they're made up for and more by Aaron Rodgers. So we'll see. And then we have the Minnesota Vikings. And let me let you in on a secret here. If this team stays healthy and makes marginal, and I mean like marginal improvements in the offensive line, this team's going to be really, really good next year. Really, really good. But they do have work to do. And that's what we're here to talk about, right? So obviously, first thing, offensive line. Everybody knows it. They have Brian O'Neill, elite player. Very, very good player. At one tackle spot, you're fine there. Garrett Bradbury, I don't think he's very good, but actually as a center, the way they play offense, he's not necessarily the reason your offensive line sucks. Like I said, I don't like him, especially, he's notoriously bad in pass protection, which is an issue, don't get me wrong. He's the type of player I do think would get better with better players around him. I don't necessarily think that about all offensive linemen. He's one, though. I could see getting a little bit better. But past that, Ezra Cleveland, I think he played pretty well. Once he came in, is he going to be playing guard? Is he going to be playing tackle? Who knows? But that's just one spot. You still need two others. I don't think Dakota Dozier or Drew Samia are quite as bad as Vikings fans think they are. Really, he has some perspective around, how bad other guards in the NFL. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're good at all, but if you didn't add anyone, you could extract. Listen, they did it last year. The Vikings had a top 10 offense with them both starting at guard. So we'll see what they do. But the main thing, left tackle. They inexplicably released Riley Reif this offseason, which that really hurts them because Riley Reif, he's above average in every respect, and that helped them a lot. And they need somebody there. Now, I think looks like they're set to take that with their 14th pick, but definitely a spot they need a lot better. And like I said, if they do, you'll get the rest of this team, and there's not a lot of holes. Because already with the third thing, I'm just on depth pieces, right? Like they have really good starters at this point. Dalvin Thomas and Michael Pierce. You're talking about going from the worst interior in football last year by quite a distance to above average with two guys who really know what they're doing, although they do kind of like meaningful backups. And then, you're just on linebacker 3, tight end 2. Like I'm telling you, this team has a ton of talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that they can be really good. Linebacker, like I said, linebacker 3. We'll see what they have in Troy Dye. I think he could step into that role. Actually, rookie out of Oregon last year, but they signed Nick Vigil. Oh God, that's bad. Nick Vigil really bad at football as a defensive player. He's good in special teams, but. They need help there. Not that they play a ton of 3 linebackers, but that is a spot for sure. Tight end 2, after letting go of Tyler Rudolph. Now, again, you can get away with Tyler Conklin there. Yeah, for sure. And Irv Smith should step into being an elite. He's already really a top 10 tight end pretty comfortably. Although the way they run offense, like I said, you could do to get better there. Somebody get a little bit more dynamic at the second spot. Wide receiver / slot receiver. I think they have that on roster in Olabisi Johnson. They didn't use him enough last year. They were giving other guys opportunities who, frankly, they shouldn't have over him. He showed as a rookie that he was actually legitimately good. But whatever, I get where they're coming from as a 7th rounder. That's a spot you get better. But again, how they run offense, Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson on the field, they're going to be dominant. And then center at the end there. And that's more of a, I know that they're not going to move on from Garrett Bradbury this early, even though they, maybe should. But so overall, like I said, the Vikings actually don't have a lot of holes on this roster. The big one, offensive line, yeah, for sure. But this team, if they stay healthy, especially defensively, they're going to be really good next year. And the last and least, Lions. This is a really tough roster. I'm going to highlight the positive first. Their offensive line is actually their offensive line pretty comfortably top 10, probably top 5 in the NFL as constructed, which is just more of an interesting thing. Like I said, the rest of the roster is going to torpedo it, so it doesn't necessarily matter. But, needs for the Lions. Wide receiver very much stands out. So Brashad Perriman, I actually think is better than people think. There's a reason he was good on the Buccaneers 2 years ago. Even last year on the Jets, he was hurt a lot. When he was healthy, he was fine. But past him, Quintus Cephas was, just all right for a rookie, but he completely lacks like speed and dynamism. And past him, there's nothing. Tyrell Williams, Ronald Allison, horrible, and whatever. They really need help at receiver if they want to get good. Now they're years from that, obviously, at this point, but definitely the number one thing. Number two, they need a meaningful edge player. They have some okay players here. I think what they're missing is the top end, and if they were to add that, I think this would go from a weakness to a strength really quickly. But just look at last year, right? It's the same group that didn't generate any pass rush last year. It's coming back this year. And while I do think Romeo Okwara is actually for real as far as a useful piece, I liked him going into last year, and he showed out. Past him, Trey Flowers as a pass rusher is not in the elite tier for sure. Julian Okwara, they just drafted as an edge. Maybe he barely played. We'll see. But they are definitely missing a high-end player there. And that goes for the interior too. This says edge. I might have glossed over that. They need interior rushers as well. I'm not even sure what kind of defense, whether they're going to be playing a 3-4, 4-3, whatever they're going to be doing. But just overall, this team is going to be horrible rushing the passer again. Quarterback. So this is probably the only time you're going to see a team with quarterback on this list and not be number one. A reason for it here is of all the quarterbacks that move teams, Jared Goff is the one I'm least sure about. There are guys like Matt Stafford who I'm very sure is going to be good. There are guys like Sam Darnold who I'm pretty sure is going to be bad. Jared Goff, I'm not positive. I definitely lean on the bad side for sure. But arm talent wise, and that guy makes some throws that are comparable to the absolute best you're going to see in the NFL. And we'll see how he processes mentally. I think you're going to know within literally the first week if he can handle it or not. But as of right now, that's just why this isn't number one, because I do think there's at least a sliver of a chance that Jared Goff could be in that, 10 to 15 range that provides enough of a level to win. Then past that, free safety, it's bad, especially this was even before they released or lost Deron Harmon. He signed with the Falcons. There's just nothing here. You have Tracy Walker and Will Harris as safeties. Both of those guys pretty complete box-only players. You signed Dean Marlowe, same thing, and frankly, he's just not even good from the Bills. And now you just have nothing to play safety, and that's going to be an issue for sure. There are modern quarterbacks who just kill teams like that. Look what happened to the Browns defense a lot of times last year because they had horrible safety play, and you're going to get some of the same here. Or the Raiders too would be a big one in that respect. So yeah, that's definitely an issue. Linebacker. I really like Jamie Collins. I wish he was on a better team at this point. But past him, you sign Alex Anzalone, who's just a nothing basically. And not that he's horrible, but he just doesn't add anything. And then you have nothing. So, yeah, that's bad. And then tight end two, even frankly, tight end one, TJ Hawkinson, not exactly an elite player, but definitely past him. You signed Josh Hill inexplicably from the Saints. Whatever. I don't know what you expect to get out of him, but you ain't going to get it. And past that, yeah, there's just nothing. So overall, this roster, you could argue everything is a bigger hole in this. I don't know. Like I said, I think their offensive line is actually pretty good at this point. And the stuff I left off for a reason. But this team, these holes are massive, and they just overall lack a lot of talent on this roster. And that's the NFC North.